Hello, welcome to the third Atop the Wailing Dunes video update. Was going to say the first on time, on schedule video update, but of course this is way behind as I forgot to post one last week owing to childcare stuff, so apologies for that. Today I'd just like to quickly share first of all the finalised printout of the map. Colours are nicely balanced, probably not showing up so well on this video camera, but yeah, I'm very happy with how that's turned out. No errors, probably at this stage. That will become apparent much later on, no doubt, and cut down to the A3 size, and you can see it's full bleed. Here's the obverse. It's probably not very visible here, but I can assure you with the human eye the contrast is decent. So apologies, my new daughter is just in the background. Alright, so today I thought, as well as showing this off, which I appreciate not everybody will be receiving a print copy of, but as I said before, you will get a PDF which you can print off at your leisure. You have my full permission if it's required, not that it should be. But today I thought I'd take you through the wilderness exploration by imagining we're depositing a band of pariahs somewhere on the eastern fringe of this map. I've already made an X because I recorded this earlier and realised the microphone wasn't on, so there you go, there's my X again. People in a parallel world where I did put the microphone on, well, you won't have any knowledge of this happening because I wouldn't have made it in your parallel world. Anyway, here the pariahs begin. Within Atop the Wailing Dunes there is a couple of things to assist the GM with running the sandbox, as well as detailed descriptions of each of the large 6-mile hexes. There's a daily wilderness checklist which provides a general framework, which of course you're free to ignore at your leisure or pleasure or peril, and weather hex-flowers which have been adapted from the work of Gblin's Henchman, and prior to that Daniel Sell of Melsonian Arts Council, and a version of Genius Loci, which is my own wilderness exploration system / mosaic strict modular rule set, just based around reaction rolls with an environmental spirit. So I'm going to show you how that kind of works. So I have my map here, there's the pariahs. I'm going to be keeping track of the passage of time by making check marks on a scrap of paper. In this case it's a printout of the Genius Loci pages from Atop the Wailing Dunes. This will also show me how to, a general rule set for running hex exploration. And as well as that, off screen I've got my weather hex-flower and the daily wilderness checklist, which I will probably superimpose on a video post-production because I have stuff to do there. Alright, so we begin by saying it's dawn. We're assuming it's 6 AM in a tropical climate where we have roughly equal time lengths of day and night, and we're going to start by rolling for weather. I begin with the weather tracker in the centre of the hex flower. Roll 2 dice. One just ran off the table and was sort of in a crevice, so I'm going to roll that in view. There you go. 7. So the 2d6 means that sorry, the 2d6 obviously weighted around 6, 7 and 8 more than other numbers, and that gives the hex flower some direction. One of the reasons earlier iterations didn't work is because they just used a single die, which meant you just sort of hover around the centre infinitely. Anyway, 7. So that sends our weather tracker over to downwards, and we have a bright sun in a clear sky, and not a sign of any cloud, and it's very dry. Not too dry to cause any worry for our robust pariahs. Anyway, well, that's established. and we want to sort of ask a couple of questions now about mainly about anyone recovering from a night's rest. We're assuming this is the start of the game, so we're not going to have that. We're going to ask who's eating, whether elders and youths are being taken care of that are travelling with the pariahs, whether any of those members of the band are remaining at a fixed camp while other members form an exploration party, and just asking questions like that and making sure resources, well, not making sure, but asking players to check off any resources that are being used during this period. It's not, like I say, it's not making sure, it's just providing a reminder, because bookkeeping is boring, and the way to share it is just for the GM to prompt the players at appropriate moments. Once plans have been established for the day, we normally sort of imagine that an hour has passed as everyone gets organised and eats their breakfast. So I go dunk. Bearing in mind we've got 12 hours of daylight, right? Now, next thing we do is say, what's the plan? So the pariahs want to get a small party together who are going to follow this river, which they've been camping nearby to. So as they begin their exploration, we sort of think, what kind of environment we're moving through. Now, currently the pariahs are located in this hex, the desert of Poix, and they're just slightly away from an interesting lair, but they're moving in the opposite direction to that. If they follow the river though, they'll be coming down to this village of Poix, so that'll be fun to see them get there, possibly. Right, so along the way we say, okay, so they're moving through some grassland at a rate of about 3 miles in an hour. These small hexes are 3 miles. And the first thing we do once they set off is establish the, if you look here, can you see that clearly? We determine the spirit of place, how generous it feels. So we roll 2d6. Again, that one's gone off camera. 2 4s. Alright. So note the highest number if the party have made an offering at a shrine or sacrifice something of significant value. They've done no such thing. It's moot because obviously both numbers are the same, but you might note the lowest number if no offering is made, or there's a casual, ill thought out, half meant offering. And it's a good idea to keep players informed of what the expectations are culturally as they play this, otherwise it's not really very fair. Anyway, 4. Okay, this is how generous the local spirit is feeling. Next we want to know, actually, to make that more sensible, I'm going to keep that score on this die there. So that's number 6, so I've kept track of that. Next thing we want to do is determine the presence. So this is how obvious the spirit is to the players, or sorry, to the pariahs, and hence the players in consequence. So I roll 2d6, and again, right, note the highest number if the party interferes with the environment or does not stick to trails or paths. Note the lowest number if the party keeps the trails and moves quickly and quietly. Now, let's make a call here. They're moving along this this river, and what they do is, if you look on the master map here, we can see that actually, oh, that's not very focused. There's a trail. Probably more clear if I were to flip this over. So you can see they've emerged on this trail and they're following that along. So that means the spirit of place is going to be very blasé about their presence there. So instead of being obvious and in their face, the Genius Loci is 1, subtle. So with that in mind, I'm just going to quickly pause here. Right, so a previous roll for the generosity of the spirit gave us 6. No, actually, sorry, that's wrong. It was 4, wasn't it? So 2 4s. So we go. Keep track of that with the 4. And we've just rolled 1 and a 5 for presents, and we picked the lowest one, and we've got a 1. So a total score there is 5, which is important because we only look at the first 2 tables if the spirit is mean or generous. So we're looking at the other first omens down here. As the party follow this trail through the grassland beside the river, they receive their first omen after an hour. So just when they're on the fringes of where they see this village on the banks of the river, which you will recall was visible in the other map, they witness some kind of omen. In fact, it's a hazard, and if you look here, 1 and 4 is 5. Other first omens, this is a near miss. Roll a hazard, no one is hurt, but it's close. None of these hazards incidentally cause instant death or instant injury. There's some alarms, but this is just kind of a signal that something isn't right. So it might serve as a sign for the prize when they continue their journey to be more cautious or more respectful of the environment through which they're traversing. So hazards, we're in this area here, we're in grass. What we got? Roll a d6. We got a 6, which is roll for an uncanny anomaly. Now, because this is a near miss, the uncanny anomalies are quite strange. So let's just see what we come up with anyway, and see how we might work that into a near miss. So these are the ones listed at the bottom. 2. So we have food and water instantly spoiled in violent or disturbing manner. Now, I think because this is just a near miss rather than an outright disaster, we might want to choose one individual in the party and say one item of food that they own. Let's say, it sort of begins to emit a strange noise, and they hear a strange noise from their sack or whatever they're carrying it in, and when they investigate they find that an item of fruit is starting to pulsate, and as it closes in on itself, as it clenches like a fist, it releases a strange wheezing noise, like air's being squeezed out of it, and then pulses and pulses, and then explodes into a shower of worms. Yeah, I think that would be quite disturbing, and maybe make the prize think that something's not right. But that happens just at the moment that the village comes into view. So now they have to consider whether they're going to continue in this direction. And just for the sake of my own amusement, the fact I want to continue with them exploring the wilderness, we're going to say that the party mistakenly believe this to be a sign that they shouldn't venture to the village that they've sighted, and instead they elect to, after wandering down this trail, to go into the grasslands. Oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. So we're still keeping the original score for presents, generosity of 4, and we're still keeping track of their presence of the Genius Loci as subtle. So I'm going to use this die here, so I've got track of that 4 and 1, because stupidly I only have 2 d6s with me right now. But this time, as you can see, subsequent omens after the first omen increase presence, which is this one, by 1 if the party continue to hunt, forage or blaze trails. Now, they're not hunting, they're not foraging, but they are going off trail. So just for the sake of it, I'm going to say that increases the presence of the genius to 2. And on this side, increase generosity by 1 if a new offering of significant value is made. An offering is made at a shrine, or if they make a shrine of their own. So after that incident, perhaps the party discuss, well, first of all they decide that they're not going to travel to the village, but perhaps a wise head among them suggests that they make an offering to whatever spirit caused them to feel so terrified with the exploding, pulsating fruit, and they sacrifice another one of their rations. Clearly it's hungry if it's attacking their food. So they conduct a small ritual of their own design, wherein they clear some of the grass and they dig a small hole and they bury some of their own food within it. And they've got some dried fish they think would be appropriate, so they mark that off their sheet, and I increase the generosity of the spirit by 1, 5. And this time they're heading north, and I check on further omens. Now the spirit is neither mean nor generous, so I go to other subsequent omens here. 5 and 2, 7. Roll for general ambience. So I say, as you're travelling north, you can see a large plateau coming into view, and let's see, and after maybe less than half an hour of journey, what have we got? Ambience in the grasslands. You witness a soft breeze which blows across the plain and sets the grass dancing, and that's the only notable occurrence during your journey. And then eventually they'll arrive at the face of this great plateau, and now we come up against a genuine wilderness obstacle that's not been randomly generated, and that is they're confronted by a sheer 200-foot cliff face, and the party will make a decision about whether they scale that using whatever they have to hand, or just go up on their own, or they continue to follow it. And let's, for argument's sake, say they continue to follow it. So they've only been travelling for 20 minutes or so since the outskirts of the village was avoided, and they continue along here. So let's say after that will be another hour, brings them to there. And of course the whole time I've marked off each hour on the track on my own notes here. So in our terms, it's still only mid-morning. By anyone's terms, it's still only mid-morning. In the game world, it's only mid-morning. I should say, in our terms, it's 9 AM. So let's have another look. So again, now the party are going off piste, so to speak. So presence increases again as the Genius Loci perhaps takes more notice of them, feels them sort of drawing closer, and wondering what they're doing, not sticking to the human pathways which have already been agreed with the settled peoples in the past. They don't make any further offering, so what should we do? Yeah, let's bring this back down again. So here we go, 4 and 3, 7. That's will be yep. That's another. It's the same as before because one went up and one went down. Don't know why I had to check that. And we roll for some general ambience. So as you're travelling along, a flock of birds bursts from the tall grass. Now, that perhaps sets off some alarm bells, because apart from the village, which they've just avoided, and the cliff face, which they're now just following along, this has been the first incident of real note. Oh, and the exploding fruit of ill favour, and they decide that these birds look tasty. There's obviously some questions. As GM, I might generate what kind of creature they are. I say, it's kind of like a strange kind of airborne fowl, sort of like a chicken but with big wings, and perhaps they think, that sounds tasty, we could at least bring some of those back to our camp. That would be pleasing for the elders and youths and the youngsters who've stayed behind. So they say, let's try a little bit of hunting while we're out here. Okay, so instead of continuing on their journey, they're going to have a wander around within this hex and try and hunt some of those giant birds. So once again, maybe the party decide, the wise one who suggested in the first instance of making a sacrifice to the spirit of exploding fruits, steps forward and said, I think we should do the same again to whatever spirit is in this region, to grant us some some of its bless our hunting expedition, let's say. So they have a discussion as a party and they say, well, we can't just bury more of our food in order to get more food. That doesn't really make any sense. And then someone pipes up and goes, I think that what would be a worthy sacrifice would be if we let some of our own blood was spilt on the ground in return for the blood we will spill of the animals that live here. So, that's a great idea. So someone reduces their hit points by 1 as they let a generous sample of their red fluid spill onto the ground, and this pleases the spirit whose generosity increases by 1. There we are, on 5. But yeah, they're still kind of wandering through the region, so let's have a look. 4, it's more, increase the presence as well as they continue to go through the wilderness, and they've started to hunt now. So before I decide what the omen's going to be, because normally the omen manifests after 1 hour of activity or wandering or what have you, we're going to consult this little bit of hunting table down here. So what we do to do that, we take another d6, that's just a generated random number, and we add the generosity to it. So let's go. 2 plus 5. 7. Okay, they pick up a trail, and basically it says here, follow for a further hour to find animal, herd or large game animal. So pick up a trail, follow for a further hour to find animal, herd or large game animal. So to kind of make this sort of correlate with what's been going on, we could give them a choice. We could say the trail of this larger animal herd, we can generate that in a moment, is sort of in one direction, and on the other hand they are pretty close to what they think might be the nest of some of these large fowl which they saw earlier. So they give them a choice. That gives them the choice to make whether they want to pursue sort of a bird in the hand or 2 in the bush, almost literally in this sense. For our own amusement, they're going to say, well, what kind of herd animal is it? Let's have a look at we've got some lists of large game and herds, on the grassland. So in this hex, this is all provided for in these tables here, and each hex has its own thing. Some of the hexes won't have herd animals, but they will have small game or predators you can choose from. Let's have a look. We've got 3. Looks to be a herd of giraffe, perhaps a family group of giraffe. And I think on one variation you can get multiple herds, but giraffe hunting. So they sort of will ponder that one for a little bit, because that could be actually quite challenging, but a significant reward if they do take that risk. Let's say they're playing it conservative in this instance, and instead they go for the fowl from earlier, and they this is a case where you might decide to run that as a combat encounter. You might do it as some kind of skill check, you might do something more random, or you might just say, in this instance, narratively, they opted for the easy option rather than the more challenging one, so we're just going to let them have that, but say, okay, you've got like, you managed to pick up between you like, yeah, 2 very fat chickens, flying chickens, which is not bad, but not perhaps as rewarding as the giraffe. And during the process of that, they lose the animal trail. But we do still have to share that omen from earlier. So what did we have? Now I stupidly moved these out of the way, and I did increase the presence and the generosity. Yeah, that's right, wasn't it? I hope that's right. Well, that's what it is now. So it was 8. So, okay, roll for positive sign or encounter humans. Now, the positive sign will give the impression to the pariahs that after their foraging, that the spirit approves. Now, I might also think, but they just sort of skirted away from that village after thinking that the omen was because they were interacting with it. So it would be nice to kind of remind them that there's a human presence in this area. But of course, when you're sort of there, how do you make a decision? You roll a die, don't you? So I'm going to say odds. This is not an established procedure. This is just how I'm deciding to play this. Odds. We've got the positive sign. Evens, we're going to have a human encounter. Alright, so we've got 6, that's an even number where I come from. We're encountering a group of humans. So what humans have we got? So let's have a look. 5 humans. We've got a band of warriors. So again, it doesn't specify where they're from. We're going to assume, given the proximity of the village of Ui, that they're going to be on patrol from there. Perhaps, possibly, because they spotted a group of scruffy-looking out-of-towners wandering through their hex, chasing giant chickens and burying food in the ground. Now, again, you'd run this the same way you'd run any other encounter with a reaction roll, and then that might turn into an interesting development, a combat encounter, further exploration of the hex, or an invitation to the village. But yeah, I think I'm going to stop there though, because this is quite long, isn't it? But I hope that gives you an idea of how you might sort of run things, making wilderness exploration a bit more granular and more responsive, and to feel like the environment is actually alive and responding to what the players do and what the characters they're controlling are doing. Yeah, and next time I'm going to be sharing some of the material from Spirits of the Here and Now, as I've not really spoken much about that. It's been focused on the module. Thanks everyone, sorry for not sending an update last week, and once again appreciate your patience and your support. Take care, bye.